Fine. So then, good evening to you all. Now, after 1 week break, we are going to meet again to continue our theory activities in 2022 batch. Uh, right. So then, here we have started our new chapter, that is the computer networks. This has been started, and regarding our networks, we covered few basic ideas. Simply we said what a network is. We went along with the definition, that is a collection of devices which are connected so that they can exchange. So there are the keywords to be highlighted. I told you to define the component network. We said that it's a collection of devices which are connected to one another so that they can exchange, share messages, ideas, files among them. Then we went along with some advantages of networks. Having them connected together, there are many more benefits. Among them, the first benefit is sharing. So without using the single word sharing, we are having the opportunity, right? What to share? Ne? We can share files, we can share data. Likewise, we can define many more sharing benefits going in one another. After that, we said about communication is more powerful. So exchanging of views, video conferencing, texting, and even the chatting, web-based communication. So powerful communication is there. Also, we said that we can control remote computers. A computer which is placed remotely be controlled by the other parties if we have the real passwords, usernames of the specific device. Like as we said about the advantages, similar to that we said about the disadvantages, the drawbacks of having the networks. Initial cost is very high, and spreading of malware or viruses. Whenever a single computer gets infected with virus, there's a probability of spreading that into the others. Even more hacking is there, since they are connected. Higher opportunity of getting to your resources unauthorized. Like as we did about a few, and if a single system, single device fails, that may avoid using all the facilities. So like as we said about many benefits in our networks, as well as drawbacks whenever we have networks. Then later on we said about the communication impairments, the troubles regarding our communication. So we said about noise, that is the mixing of unwanted signals, and even we said about attenuation, reducing the power, even distortion, changing the shape of the signal, delay distortion. And then we said about the properties of a signal, amplitude. Now, for the lesson today, we need these keywords, right? Amplitude, if I'm to draw that wave, amplitude is the height of the wave from the equilibrium. Then we said about the wavelength, lambda, that is the distance between two equal positions. And even frequency, that is the number of cycles per second. Even we said about phase. So phase defines the starting point of the wave. So then the positions of the wave had been labeled as an angle. So this is 0, this is 90, this is 180, this is 270, as well as this is 0 or 360. Then if our wave is starting from somewhere like this, we call that phase of this wave is 270. Why? At the time 0, the wave is starting from the bottom line. That's what the phase is. We did that. And then we told about the media called as guided media, unguided media. So regarding guided, we said that it's using a cable. We have different types of cables available. Twisted pair cables. They are in two, UTP as well as STP. STP has extra shielding to cover the external electromagnetic fields. And then we said about this twisted pair and coaxial cables. So it has only a single conductor covered by foil. So then this is better to carry less powerful signals, just like antenna, CCTV camera signals, likewise. And then we said about fiber optic cables. So fiber optic cables are carrying light rays. So then they are free from external electromagnetic fields. That's another benefit. Then we went along with the unguided media. There we said about radio waves. So radio waves are going in omnidirectional. I'm just revising this, right? Since we had new year, you're thinking that you forgot everything. Then we had these circular paths, and they can travel long distance. Even when you go for Wi-Fi, even Bluetooth, they are types of radio waves. Later we said about microwaves. Microwaves are traveling in a direction. Mostly they are using satellite. Satellites are placed on the atmosphere, so then they are orbiting around us, reflecting the signals to the destination. And we have terrestrial microwaves. So then they are not using the satellites. Through the big towers, the communication is taken place. So mostly the telecommunication providers are using them. And later we said about infrared. That is a very weak signal. Nowadays we don't use that for our communication even. Regarding our infrared, it uses in remote controllers to send control signals to the specific device. Still, it's a directed signal. So then the other areas that we have covered up to now. So today we have to start a new section in our networking lesson. That is the modulation part. Before modulation, today did we do those keywords telling that latency? Did I introduce latency? Give me the response. I think I told it with you. Yes, latency done. And even did we do the bandwidth? Bandwidth, still yes. Fine. Then those are there. Then before starting modulation, I'll just give you another keyword that's not going in the flow, but I may introduce that since it's a certain keyword we may use. That's called as point-to-point topology, or simple topology, or point-to-point connection. So then this is a certain keyword, right? Called as simple topology. This is also called as point-to-point connection. Very simple. This is a concept that we need to cover today. So simple topology as well as point-to-point connection. What it says here is whenever two devices, not more, only two, whenever two devices are connected one another directly, that's called as simple topology. Here we have a computer having connected directly. No any other connections are going on. Only these two are connected. That's called as simple topology. Also, these two can be connected through a wire. Still possible. This is still simple topology. One practical example here is you may connect your smartphone with your laptop. We do that. Or with your desktop computer. Maybe using the USB cable or through Bluetooth, we have the connectivity. That's still simple. Why? Two devices are connected directly. Maybe wired or wireless, which is called as simple topology. So what I want to say is, suddenly if this word appears, you should know what this is. Okay, we like this keyword, simple topology, within brackets like that, point-to-point connection. We like simple topology or point-to-point connection. They will like whenever only two devices, whenever only two devices are directly connected, whenever only two devices are directly connected, It is called simple topology. It is called simple topology. Next point. The connectivity can be either wired, or wireless. Connectivity can be either wired or wireless. Fine. So then this is what the simple topology is. Right. So you better take this drawing, maybe wired or wireless. This is one such example, smartphone to laptop. We write an example here in the note. Leave the space to draw, have this drawing. Example: when the smartphone is connected, to the computer, within like I say laptop. To the computer, within like I say laptop, using a USB cable. Comma, it is simple topology. Fine. Then you may take this drawing. I send the screenshot, but without having this labeling. Therefore, you better take the screenshots on your own. So better to have these drawings. They will give a better idea than what your note is. Right. That's the modulation. Sorry, that's a point-to-point topology. Now we go to the next area called as modulation. This is a very important section in our syllabus, in our network part. Modulation. What is modulation? Mainly the modulation taken place in events like this. Once you go for, now assume that, fine, I want to communicate with you all now. What I know need to be explained to you all. So then you people are at your home, I am here in my home. Now I want to explain these things so that can I shout, forget about the technology, can I shout so that everyone can hear me? Possible? Then if you can hear me just coming out from your room and you are listening to my voice now. Okay, modulation is this. Then point-to-point communication. Can you get that idea? Is it practical to shout louder so that my voice can be heard by the people who are in my meeting now? No. That's how we use technology. Right. The other example. Now, forget about this now, so it will be confusing for some people. We know about radio communication. We have the radio set. Now, whatever the announcers at the radio station, so they are talking at the moment. They are just telling at the time, whatever the programs that they do, they are talking. So you have to turn on the radio, then only their voice can be heard. Is it practical for them to shout so that all the Sri Lankan can hear their voice? They can't. So that what they do is, the reason for that one is our voice, the tone, the voice, the sound that we make cannot travel for long distance. So normally it can be travel for short distance, few meters. People who are in your room, people who are in your home can hear, but even the neighbors can't hear. But some people are shouting where the neighbors can hear. That's the nature of voice. But there are situations where we need to send this voice for kilometers of distance, just like radio broadcast. Even this event, our Zoom meeting. So then what we do here is, since the voice cannot travel in kilometers, we people is selecting a signal which can travel long distance. Think of this radio. So radio broadcasting people, what they do is, they take a certain wave or signal, that can travel long distance. This is readily going for very long distance. They are the ones called as radio signals. And into this radio signal, they are mixing the voice. You understand that? So what they do is they take a signal. Simply it may be a wave. But this wave, according to the frequency, phase, amplitude, it can travel kilometers of distance without any problem. This is a wave. If you emit it, it goes for long distance. But I want to send my voice for the people who are in kilometers away from my presence. Then what do I do is I may mix my voice into this. Now we are going to produce a certain mixed signal. This mixed signal is called as the modulated signal. Modulation is the process. Modulation is the process or the activity of combining your original data. Voice is the data to be sent into another wave. Why do we combine them? So that these signals can travel long distance. That's the purpose of doing this. Then in radio transmission, the same thing will happen. I'll redraw that. So this is the radio station. What they do is they use a certain signal which can travel a long distance. So this signal which can travel long distance is called as a carrier signal. You should know these words. It's called as a carrier signal. That means the signal can carry for long distance. Carrier signal. It's just like a carriage. Why? It is used to carry your data. Carrier signal. This carrier signal should travel long distance. Maybe a uniform wave. Carrier signal. Into that the voice is combined. Then as a result, it may create a signal which is called as a modulated signal. Modulation is the process. Then it is creating a certain signal which is called as the modulated signal. So this modulated signal is mixed with the voice as well as the blank carrier signal. Carrier signal is blank. Only feature is it can travel a long distance. But it's something like this, right? So that I want to send some items. I want to send some furniture. In my home, I have some furniture. I want to send them to a friend who is in Colombo. What I do is I am using a lorry. Lorry is the carrier signal. It's empty. What I am doing is I am putting my furniture into the lorry. That process is called as modulation. Mixing my furniture with the carrier. Now both will go to Colombo. That's what the incident here is. Carrier signal is completely blank. We are modulating our voice, or else we can call it as data. This process is called as modulation. Then as a result, modulated signal will be produced. Modulated signal can travel long distance with the help of this carrier signal. Why? Both are combined. Then they are received by the receiver. Here we have the receiver. At the receiver, what should be done? There should be a process called as demodulation. This modulation. At the sender, example is the radio station. Then at the receiver, we have the radio set. That's the receiving end. We receive the modulated signal. So this is what the modulated signal. It is received. Then there's a process going on called as demodulation. What it does here is split this signal into the carrier signal as well as the data signal, breaking them into two. At the receiver, I want to send my furniture to my friend. Then friend wants only the furniture, not the lorry. So they'll unload it. The furniture is unloading. That's called as modulation, demodulation. Then they are going to get voice or data with the carrier signal separately. Then what they do is the receiver takes this voice signal and proceed with that, discarding the carrier signal. You are clear, I hope. So this is what happened in our modulation. I think you are clear what this process is. So modulation is used in order to send your data or files for long distance, since they can't travel as it is. So the same thing happens in this communication at the moment. I want to send my video, my sound to your home. Then they are they are modulated into a certain pattern, and that modulated signal travels through this internet connection. You are going to get it. Your laptop, your smartphone is demodulating them and getting the video data, sound data, and displaying them to you people, discarding the carrier signal. So this is taken place in wired as well as wireless, both the mediums. Hope that you are clear. Called as modulation. Right. Uh, Fine. Other doubts? Think the things are clear. Right. Then we'll go to the topic for the modulation. This quite big topic, modulation. And that will like modulation. We'll say is the process of is the process of is the process of combining the combining data comma voice with with a carrier signal in order to send a specific data set comma voice signal for long distance for long distance and that's a modulation process. You combine your data, maybe voice or whatever the data to be sent in with a carrier signal, and then that is doing that's called as modulation. It is done in order to send these data for long distance. That's the simplest idea. Now we'll go for further explanation behind this one. We like the next point. The modulation process is using a carrier signal which can travel for long distance, which can I say kilometers. Which can travel for long distance, which I say kilometers. which can travel for long distance, we might say kilometers. Next point. The original data, we might say the original data, we might say voice, comma images, comma videos, the original data, then I say voice, video, images, are not ready to travel long distances as it is. To travel long distances as it is. Right. Next point. The sender modulates. The sender modulates, which I can say combine. The sender modulates, which I can say combine. The specific data signal with a carrier signal which is known as modulation. Next point. As a result, the modulated signal, is created which can travel long distance, which is say kilometers, which can travel long distance, if I say kilometers, post brackets, as expected. Next point. The receiver demodulates. The above signal. The receiver demodulates the above signal back into the data signal and the carrier signal. And the carrier signal. Back into the data signal and the carrier signal. While discarding the carrier signal, at the receiver, So then this is what the whole modulation process. This is mainly used in our radio TV transmission. Their voice, video are attached with the carrier signal, and they travel over the wireless medium, radio waves, and we may receive that from the radio set or our TV set, then split them, get this, whereas discarding the carrier signal at the receiver. Hope that you are clear on this point. Right? We'll have examples behind the note. I hope that you leave the space for this drawing. So leave the space for this drawing. Right? So this is the sender radio station. Taken place, modulation is taken place there. Carrier signal here, voice data combined. That's called as modulation. Then the modulated signal is released. That is travel over the medium. Receiver, the radio set gets it, and demodulation is taken place, which will split that into the carrier signal as well as the data signal. Take this drawing. I send you the picture. Still, you can take the screenshot if you want. Then you like the example. The radio stations, example, the radio stations and the TV stations, radio stations and the TV broadcasting stations, radio stations and the TV broadcasting stations are using modulation concepts to send voice, video data, to their viewers. Right. Then that's what the modulation process is. That's clear. Now regarding this modulation, that's the main idea. This is going to be taken place in 6 different ways. Completely modulation. The way we combine, the way we modulate the data signal with carrier signal has 6 different changes based on the type of signal you are going to send. In this case, we have to send voice data. Are they analog or digital? The voice we talk, the tone, is that analog signal or digital signal? I need your answer. The voice we talk, is that a digital signal or analog signal? If I record my voice, the recorder will keep it. Is that recorded as an analog signal or digital signal? Answer me. Only 2 people answered me. What about the others? It's analog. Right. So then the reason is digital signal means it is going to have only 2 levels. When I am talking, I don't talk 2 words. I don't talk in two tones. Varieties of tones are there. Suddenly I may increase my sound. Sometimes make it slower. The words I speak are changing from time to time. So then it is not in two levels all the time. It is a certain analog continuous wave compared to the earlier. So then our voice is analog. Then when I have to send my voice to a faraway location, I have to use analog signal modulation techniques. That means whenever the analog signals are modulated, there are three techniques. Simply when you consider your data in the component, now this time in Zoom, they prepare my video, audio into a certain format. Is that digital or analog? In the Zoom application, by the Zoom application, they prepare my voice and video to be sent into your homes. The preparation done by my Zoom application, is that digital or analog? Digital and analog. It should be digital. Everybody is computer. Computer is a digital device. Smartphone is a digital device. So then they take my voice, they take my video, make them into a digital packet, digital object. That is going to be sent to your side. And computer is digital. Then by that time, there should be some other modulation techniques, since digital set of data has to be sent to the receivers. So then they are called as digital signal modulation techniques. Digital signal modulation. So then there are three analog signal modulation techniques, three digital signal modulation techniques. So then the analog signal modulation techniques are AM, FM, as well as PM. They are the three analog signal modulation techniques we have. Then regarding digital, we have ASK, FSK, as well as PSK, the digital signal modulation techniques available in our networking areas. Hope that you people are understanding what I am telling here. Would they be on alert, right? What I am telling here? So don't change your mind here and there. If so, the things will be left. Now this AM stands for amplitude modulation. Can you remember that? We learned about amplitude, the properties of a signal. We need that now. Even we learned about frequency. This is called as frequency modulation. PM is phase modulation. Then ASK means amplitude shift keying. Then FSK means frequency shift keying. PSK means phase shift keying. So likewise, we have 6 complete modulation techniques in analog one set, digital another set. That's what our next topic is. Then leave the space. I hope that you left it, and we had those examples as well. Now we'll go for a point with the star wheel light. There are six different modulation techniques. There are 6 different modulation techniques available. 6 different modulation techniques available. Shall we take this? I can give the screenshot, but I better write it, right? Analog signal modulation, then these 3 are, then digital signal modulation, these 3. Take that quickly. Fine. Amplitude modulation, frequency modulation, phase modulation, they are analog. Digital නම් ASK. So simply in radio, they use analog signal modulation, radio set. Our digital communication, whenever you use Viber call, even a WhatsApp call, Zoom meeting, so then they are completely based on digital signal modulation techniques. All right, then we have subtopic in that analog signal modulation techniques. Analog signal modulation techniques. Shift key, yes. Shift key. You can see the screen, right? Right. The next subtopic, analog signal modulation techniques. Am I right? This subtopic. Under this subtopic, we will continue analog signal modulation techniques. They will like. Whenever the analog signals are sent, if you want, you can draw this as well. This analog signal, whenever the analog signals are sent to long distances, the analog signal modulation techniques must be used. Example, in radio stations, are sending analog sound signals. Captured from the microphone to the audience using analog signal modulation techniques. Fine. Then the next point, there are three different types of analog signal. There are three techniques, you say like that. Otherwise, it's a long sentence. Otherwise, you can write it. There are three different types of analog signal modulation techniques. There are three types. Right. Then out of that, I will go to the first one, part A, AM, called as amplitude modulation. Right. Then we will see how this is taken place, and even in our teacher's guide, it is clearly told. So hope most of you, I expect this to be available in our papers, but up to now, this sort of a question was not there. We'll be ready for that one somehow. Normally, amplitude modulation is something like this. Now we know modulation. Here we have the sender. At the sender, we are sending a certain signal. As I said earlier, this may be an analog signal. Analog signal. It may be my voice. Right. And we have to use a carrier signal, don't we? That's a uniform signal. Carrier signal has no data. It's a uniform, not having different changes. Similar appearance is there in every time in the carrier signal, but it can travel long distance. So we use a carrier signal. Right. Now, yes, I'll have a space here. Then this voice signal I want to send, the voice signal and the carrier signal. I need more space here to draw it clearly, then you can understand this. So look at the way how I'm drawing this. Then here we have the analog signal. Sorry, that is voice. I'll make the signal like this. And then I will have to have the carrier signal as well. So as I said earlier, the carrier signal is going to be a certain uniform continuous signal. So that my carrier signal is something like this. I'll increase the frequency here. Carrier signal has no fluctuations. It's a uniform signal which can travel long distance. This is clear to you. Then whenever I go to the analog signal to be sent, that may not be uniform like this. In some places, as I said earlier, I may speak loud. Louder means high amplitude. Sometimes I may talk with less tone, less loud. So then by that time, the signal have variance. So simply I may consider a certain signal like this, starting from somewhere here with a higher tone, higher value, reducing it, going like this, again going into the peak in that way. This may be the signal. I want to send this signal to the receiver. Are you clear? Assume that this is voice. So here I talk louder. Again reduce the tone. Again quite louder. Reduce it. Again with a huge tone. Now we have to do the modulation. Then once you combine these two, we are going to get the modulated signal. That is going under the amplitude modulation. Right. Now I'll explain what this amplitude modulation is. Amplitude modulation is, listen, this signal has to be combined with this signal. In order to combine this carrier signal, this data signal with the carrier signal, what we do here is, we are going to change one of the property of this carrier signal to match with this. You don't get it. Whenever signal is there, we have properties called as amplitude, frequency, phase, even the lambda, wavelength. They are properties. We need the carrier wave. Why? Carrier wave is the wave which travels long distance. What we do here is, one of the property of the carrier wave is changing without changing the other properties. So this change we do to match with the signal we are going to send. If it is amplitude modulation in the carrier signal, which property is changed? Now you can give me the answer. We are going to go for the amplitude modulation. Then of the carrier wave, which property may be changed to match with the signal to be sent? Amplitude. So then amplitude modulation is changing the amplitude of the carrier wave to match with the signal to be sent without changing the other properties of the carrier signal. We don't change any of the other properties, but change amplitude. That amplitude will represent the data signal we are going to send. Now you got the point. We'll see how that comes into this. Okay. Then we have to modify the carrier signal. This is a carrier signal. Amplitude of the carrier signal has to be changed after the modulation. Now this has the same amplitude since it is the pure carrier wave. I mean, before the modulation is a uniform, similar wave. After the modulation, the amplitude is going to be changed. Height is the amplitude to match with this. So what I do here is to make my work easier. Other thing, my carrier wave is a symmetric wave. This is the time axis. This is parallel to the x-axis. Half above the x-axis, half below the x-axis. This is completely above the time axis. So what I'm doing is I just map my signal in this order. These are some peaks to be highlighted. This is certain bottom area in my signal, and this is the next peak I'm going to get in my voice signal, right? And gradually it reduces and comes to a certain level like this. I just have some margins to make it quite clear. So then somewhere here we start from a higher value. I just draw some dotted lines. Now look at the way how I am doing it, right? Now I am going to draw the carrier wave modulated signal under the amplitude modulation. So then I have to worry about the amplitude of the original signal I am being given. It comes like this, and having that. Then in this case, it goes to a certain peak, but not higher like the earlier. Again, it is reducing and coming to a level like this. Fine. And then it is rising into a peak, which may be higher or parallel to the earlier level. Fine. And then continue like this. Then from this point onwards, it keeps constant. This is the time axis. Fine. Now, since it is the carrier wave, this is symmetric, so I need to have the same amplitude variation in the other side as well. So I'm continuing somewhere here and coming into a place like this. Like this. This is not the wave, I just mark the margins. How should the carrier wave be after the modulation? Fine. Then if I draw the carrier wave, I may draw the carrier wave with a higher frequency than this even. Then it may be a better representation than having this level of frequency. Right. So my curves are going to be closer to one another than earlier. This is a carrier wave. It's a uniform wave having the same frequency, same amplitude continuously. Now, after the amplitude modulation, what it does here is the amplitude of the carrier wave is changed without changing the frequency. Frequency means what? That is the distance between the curve. This is and this is. So this has higher frequency, this has lower frequency. So in this carrier wave, I am not allowed to change the frequency. The same distance between the curves should be there. I am not allowed to change the phase. Phase is the starting point of the wave. This is the place where we started. From the same place we are starting. Can't change the distance between this one. Can't change lambda, this distance. But amplitude can be changed, and amplitude has to be changed. So starting from here, phase, and maintaining the same frequency, Same frequency is going to be where the amplitude is changing along with these branches or pathways. Hope that you are clear. So sometimes my drawing may not have the same distance among the waves, but simply it should be. You understand that? This is what the thing is. So the same frequency is there, but amplitude of the carrier wave is changed once it is matched. Then later you can delete or erase these margins. So then that's how the appearance of the modulated signal under the amplitude modulation. Is it clear? This is AM amplitude modulated signal. So I expect this sort of a drawing for you in the second paper, structured one. So they can give you this sort of a drawing, and you are supposed to draw this thing. If it is there, you should be able to handle that. Right? This modulated signal, amplitude modulation. This is the carrier signal. This is the real analog data signal or the voice signal. Analog data or voice signal. Hope that you are clear. Right? So then I will write the note. Part A, we have the introduction there, and then part A, amplitude modulation. And that you write amplitude modulation. So then no number of cycles also should be the same. Yes, exactly should be. Really, if you are drawing the realistic order, from here to there, if you have 1, 2, 3, 4, it should be 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, yes. And between these two, we have to have 1, right? Then 1. From in between these two, again another 1. In between these two, 1, 2. 1, 2. So like this, that should be there exactly once you continue. A frequency should be the same. Okay. So like under the amplitude modulation, AM amplitude modulation is the process of changing the amplitude, changing the amplitude of the carrier wave, changing the amplitude of the carrier wave without changing the frequency, comma phase, comma wavelength of the carrier signal, to match with the data, comma voice signal, Next point will write the frequency, comma phase of the modulated signal, should remain the same, as in the carrier signal, as in the original carrier signal. as in the original carrier signal. Fine. Then shall we have this drawing? Will you draw it later or now? I think it's better to draw it now. It may take time, but then you may remember how to draw this, right? I send you the screenshot, but it's better to draw it now. So they just draw it like this. And once you did it, you can show me your, you can WhatsApp me the picture if you want. If you're not sure, yes, better draw it now. I'll give you 2-3 minutes. Do that. Draw a certain wave like this. Then simultaneous, so the uniform wave has to be drawn. Then mark the margins. Then draw these edges. Like us continue that. If you have doubts, inform me. So the x-axis is always time. If you have doubts, inform me. I'll resolve. Done. Once you did it, inform me. Then I know that you did it. Because I'm waiting here. Done. Done. Still drawing. We have 5 more. No. Why? Yes, one child said that done. 2. So then it should be parallel to this, right? This carrier wave. Whenever there's a less peak, you have to draw that in that particular place. That's why I had these vertical dotted lines. 2 people did it. What about the others? And then the other message for you is from the next month. Now this is April. We have 1 more week to go during April, I hope. Is it? In our today is 21st. Then yes, next one is 28th. So then from the next month, that means from May onwards, I may take the physical classes. So I'll stop the online things. Then now the online is going on. That's on Saturday, 3 to 5. Then from the next month, Wednesday session is not conducted. Instead, we are going to conduct the Sunday batch, Sunday 3:15 to 5:15. So from the next month onwards, next week we have the online thing. Next month we are going to the London Bridge and doing that in it. So then there are problems for the people who have joined from far away, from Colombo and some other areas. Then for them, I didn't promise you that I'm continuing online. If there's a considerable group, I can start a separate online group for those people. But the general online class is not continued further. From the next month, right? So next week we'll have it. Right. So then hope that you did it, right? Right. So then this analog signal, once you combine that with the carrier signal, you are going to get a modulated signal like this. That's under the analog amplitude modulation. That's clear. Then when we continue this amplitude modulation, this is how the wave diagrams are. Then when we continue this amplitude modulation, how can the feature be? Where will this be applied? Mainly this amplitude modulation is going to be applied in our radio transmission. Radio transmission. So you know that when you go to our radio set, when it comes to our radio set, here our meter panel somewhere, I want to show that analog radios what we had there. Now the digital systems we have that here when you go to our old radios, even in this shape, you have seen that the meter goes with FM and AM. So you can switch that. Somewhere, I don't know, there's a certain button in the specific radios, it differs. So there's a switch to make change the AM and FM. It's there, right? Somewhere here, it changes. So you can switch them. Then nowadays, what we are doing is we are just experiencing FM channels. So mainly we are going with FM, frequency modulation. So in FM channels, we have Sirius FM, Helium FM, whatever Sun FM, we have FMs. So then AM is another frequency set to send you sound. But nowadays we don't use AM since it is not good like FM. FM is next thing. So then here these signals are mainly used in our radio transmission. They are subjected to more noise. If you tune into AM channels, so they are not clear like FM. Charabaras sound is there while the voice is giving back behind the scene. And then the other point is it consumes more power, more battery power. So if you use these AM radios, the batteries can't use for long time. But nowadays we know that in our phone we have the radio. So then it won't drain more power. FM fine. AM, now if you switch that into AM channels, it gets more power, so can't have long battery life in it. Other thing is the range, the coverage is very long. So then it can extend your broadcasting for even foreign countries. So then very long area is covered because of this AM signals. But low quality simply, high power consumption. Therefore, this AM is not practically used in the modern days regarding our radio transmission. So this is a main application where amplitude modulation is used. In AM, we take our voice, right, take into the microphone, and that's not digital. Microphone will prepare the analog audio signal and modulate that with a particular carrier signal, then send it. But that's not good. Okay, we like further after this drawing. AM or amplitude modulation, AM amplitude modulation is practically used. AM is practically used in radio transmission. In radio transmission, to broadcast AM amplitude modulation, to broadcast AM channels, to broadcast AM channels. Next point, the signals are affected by noise. The signals are affected by noise more and more therefore the receivers are getting poor sound quality, poor audio or sound quality. Next point, AM consumes more power, AM consumes more power, so that shorter battery lifetime is expected. Right. Next point. The broadcasting coverage is more since don't say since, broadcasting coverage is more, so that the signals can travel long distances. Right. So then that's about the AM that is used in our radio transmission most of the times, but even nowadays we don't use it since the poor quality, low efficiency, high power consumption. So then there are many weak points regarding our requirement. Right. Now we go to the next one, FM. Now regarding our FM, that's also used in our sound or audio broadcasting. That gives better performance. FM channels, they are having less noise, so consume less power, stereo, and many more features are there in it. The next one, FM, frequency modulation. Then what is the process? Amplitude modulation, what do you do? Change the amplitude of the carrier wave to match with the signal without changing other properties. If it is frequency modulation, which property of the carrier wave changed? Which property might have been changed? Frequency. So frequency means the distance between curves is changing to match with the signal we are going to send. Without changing the amplitude, we said that in a signal we have amplitude, then frequency, even phase, wavelength. Now frequency is changed without changing the other properties of the carrier wave to match with the signal to be sent. Right. So frequency means we know that amplitude should remain the same. So this is a higher frequency, this is a low frequency, having the same height of the carrier wave. So the format of the modulated signal is not like the earlier, it's completely different. Right. Then if I draw that, now the frequency will remain, the amplitude will remain the same. Right. Then these are the places where we have the, now look at the way how I'm doing this. This is the frequency modulation. Then these are the places, the important places of my original signal. Now somewhere here we have higher value of the signal. Whenever there's a higher value, the frequency has to be changed. So we go for higher frequency. Whenever we go for a lower value, the curves are going to get away from one another, representing lower frequency. Again, when there's a peak in the energy, somewhere here, the waves are going to get closer to one another. Somewhere here, lower value, so lower frequency, so the waves are going to be away from one another. Right? So you understand that this is low frequency, this is high frequency. High frequency, that's what I taught this earlier. Frequency means number of cycles per second. Higher frequency, and they are going to get closer to one another. Low frequency means their curves are going to get away from one another. Now, with that nature, the amplitude should remain the same. Phase should remain the same. Starting point should be the same. Amplitude should be the same. Then, to represent the higher value, we must have higher frequency. So, I may draw the waves closer to one another. And when it's come to this place, gradually, they are going to get away from one another. That representation should be there. When you reach here, it's the lowest frequency of this signal. And again, I have a slight increment. Then they are going to get close to one another, but not close like this, right? Somewhere here. Again, reducing it. That means they are going to get away. And again, from here onwards, it is rising. So these waves are going to get closer to one another gradually, not at once. Now, from here, we are going to get the peak, higher frequency, the same amplitude will remain. Now, gradually, they are going to get away from one another, like this. Are you clear? So, this is what the frequency modulation is. To represent higher value of the signal, higher frequency is used. To represent the low value of the signal, lower frequency has to be used. Clear? Right. And there's another question asking regarding this FM. Then now real level practical world, we have FM channels. One is 90.9, other one is 81 or 88.7. Then how they are set? This is the frequency for the 90.9 megahertz is the frequency there. We said that mega means million times hertz. So this is the frequency of the signal, the carrier wave. If this is a channel 88.7 means that's the frequency of that carrier wave. So different channels, say that this is Sun FM. So Sun FM is using a carrier wave which is of that particular frequency. Then if this is some other channel, they use that frequency of the carrier wave in order to send their signals. That's a practical idea. But in our level, when you go for the frequency modulation, frequency has to be changed according to the carrier signal. Hope that you are clear. Okay, we like the next one, frequency modulation. We like frequency modulation. Is the process of changing the frequency is the process of changing the frequency of the carrier wave to match with the analog signal to be sent without changing without changing amplitude, without changing the amplitude, phase of the carrier wave, of the carrier wave. Next point, higher value of the signal, higher value of the signal, higher value of the signal higher value of the signal is represented by, higher value of the signal is represented by a higher frequency, higher frequency, while the lower values, while the lower values are represented by low values are represented by a lower frequency, lower frequency at the modulated signal, at the modulated signal. Right. Then shall we take this? I think that now you can do that, unlike the earlier one. Therefore, I'll send you the picture and try to do that. Can you, or do we need to do it now? So you people are not taking too much of time. That's the point. All right, then draw it quickly. Done. Done. Right. Then that's about the frequency modulation, changing the frequency. But if I'm going for the features there, this is still used in our radio transmission, which gives better quality, better audio quality, as well as less noise, less power. Even the range is still considerable to cover kilometers. We like the features behind that. After the drawing, we'll say FM frequency modulation, FM is also practically used. FM is also practically used FM is also practically used in radio transmission. In radio transmission to send audio signals, to send audio signals. To send audio signals. Next point. FM is with less noise, comma, FM is with less noise, comma, less power consumption, and covering a larger distance, when compared to AM. Fine. So then this is mainly used in our radio. Even in our TV, you have heard about VHF channels, UHF channels. Still they use frequency modulation. So not only in radio. We like the next point. Also the TV broadcasting. We can say VHF, UHF, very high frequencies, ultra high frequencies. Even TV transmission, VHF, UHF, are also using FM frequency modulation. Right. Then that's clear. Then we are going to the other analog modulation. What is that? PM, that is phase modulation. Then I don't need to explain. What is the process going behind phase modulation? Phase modulation now, which feature of the carrier wave is changed? Amplitude modulation changing the amplitude. Frequency modulation changing frequency. Phase modulation is changing the phase of the carrier signal without changing the other properties to match with the signal we are going to send. So phase has to be changed. When changing the phase is quite complex than the frequency as well as amplitude. When you go to the phase, we see that that's the starting point of the signal. Even this wave has the phase like this. Therefore, at this level, I may not draw the wave diagram for the phase modulation. thinking that it may not be there for your paper since this level of questions were not appeared yet. If they are going to make it available, most probably they'll make it available for the amplitude and the frequency, not for this complex drawing. The reason is phase modulation is we have to draw that with care. So in the paper, if they add that phase modulation, that's difficult for them to mark it even. If there's a small change, that may affect. So therefore, I don't hope that they'll give you the phase modulation. If they are going to give you, you may be getting amplitude and frequency, so that I don't waste time on drawing the wave diagram in phase. But we'll learn the features there. Phase modulation is the process of changing the phase of the carrier wave, right? Remember that carrier wave phase is changed to match with the signal to be sent. Then the features behind this are phase modulation is better. Most probably when you go for our Wi-Fi connections. So that is using a certain technology called as PM in order to encode our data. So that you may argue that that's digital. Yes, that's digital, but in the form of analog, they use this signal. So then phase modulation is quite better since it is going to have less noise problem, and even it can be subjected to more encryption or encoding. That means less problems or more security is there in PM modulation technique. Okay, we'll complete the next note for the PM phase modulation. There we write phase modulation is the process of changing the phase is the process of changing the phase of the carrier wave, changing the phase of the carrier wave to match with the data signal to be sent without changing the amplitude, frequency, without changing the amplitude, frequency of the carrier wave. Next point. PM is also not affected by noise. PM is also not affected by noise. PM is also not affected by noise. While it is producing faster, efficient performance. Right. So then that's about the phase modulation. So forget about the wave diagram regarding phase. Others just have an idea how we are going to continue. Okay, then that's the analog signal modulation techniques that we need to cover. Then we go to the digital signal modulation techniques. That's quite easier than this. So our next subtopic is digital signal modulation. Then if you are going to modulate digital signals, This is an analog signal. So then the signal to be sent is not like this. It is going to be a digital signal. We know the shape of the digital signal. It is with only two states, ones and zeros. So then here we have ones, zeros. That's our digital signal. Sometimes it may go for quite long distance. So this is what the digital signal is. Then this is going to get modulated. So under the amplitude shift keying, frequency shift keying, as well as PSK phase shift key. How would it be? Right. Now I'll explain those three. Among them, the first one is ASK amplitude shift key. Amplitude shift key. Right. Now, okay, we'll write introduction there. Digital signal modulation. We like digital signal modulation. We'll say whenever a digital signal is sent, to a long distance, whenever digital signal is sent to a long distance, it has to be modulated with a carrier signal. It has to be modulated with a carrier signal. Next point. The features of the carrier signal, are changing. Features of the carrier signal are changing to match with the digital signal, to be sent. Next point. Digital images, video, documents, files, saved in a computer, within, like I said, digital device. Saved in a computer within, like I said, digital device, are sent using the digital signal modulation techniques. Right. Then part A, ASK, amplitude shift key. Right. Now, like we had in our analog signal modulation technique, amplitude shift keying means a digital signal modulation technique. Same like the earlier, a single property of the carrier wave is changed according to the digital signal. Now, this carrier wave is not this block shape, right? Why this is a wave? It should travel long distance. It's a normal analog wave. We are going to combine digital signal into this. These ones and zeros have to be added into this. Carrier signal is a normal signal like we had earlier. So then again, we are going to change the property of the carrier signal according to the method we use. If it is amplitude shift keying, what we do here is we change the amplitude of the carrier wave without changing the frequency, phase, lambda to match with the signal to be sent. See? Only difference is this is digital. So since it is digital, in this signal, the digital signal, we have only two levels to be represented, ones and zeros. When you go for the analog signal, there are many more values there. We have to represent this place, this place, this place, this place. That is what analog is. But when it comes to digital, we have only ones and zeros to be there. Then once you modulate that, after the modulation, that should represent ones and zeros. Only two states have to be represented. That's quite easy. We'll see how to do that. Now, once I'm going for the modulated signal, this is what my final modulated signal. We have the time here. Then from here to there, we have to represent 1. This one. And from here to there, we have to represent 0. Then again, 1 will come from this interval. 0 will come along with this interval. Again, 1 will be available in this interval. So I'm just using these margins so that we can draw our work. We can continue our work easily for these margins, right? Then now this is a carrier wave. We have to maintain the same carrier wave, right? Then carrier wave, if it is amplitude modulation, the amplitude of the carrier wave is changing when representing ones and zeros. If so, how many amplitude values should we have in our modulated signal? After the modulation, how many amplitude values should there be? The infinite number of amplitude should be there in the final modulated wave. But then how many states are to be represented in the final modulated wave? 2, ones and zeros. Then if those two levels, if those two states are represented in the modulated through the amplitude, we have to have only two amplitudes. One amplitude is representing 1, other amplitude is representing 0. Then by monitoring the amplitude, we can understand what those values are. Only two levels should be there. Then I may continue this as 1 amplitude, and this is the symmetric signal. So then if we are to represent 0, what I do here is 0 will be represented by 0 amplitude. 1 will be represented by the available amplitude. In this wave, there is an amplitude available. That will represent 1. To represent 0, we maintain 0 amplitude. How can the wave, now if it is 1, the same amplitude will be there, right? Then this is 1. You understand that? And after that, we need to have 0. Amplitude 0 means we don't have a height, right? That is going parallel to the x-axis. Then from here to there, it is representing 0. Then again 1, having the same amplitude. This is 1. Did you get the idea? So amplitude 0 means no wave at all. It's completely stopping the wave. If there's amplitude, there should be energy. Can you remember that? I told you that energy of the wave is represented by the amplitude. 0 amplitude means no energy, no wave at all. So then that is what the process here. Then from here to there it's 1. So then I may maintain the same wave without changing the frequency. Comes to here. Then 1 is over. This is 1. The next interval is going to be with 0. 0 now amplitude is going to be 0 flat. Again 1. So no change of the frequency, just coming like this. So this is 1. After that again 0. Then another 1. Same frequency, same amplitude of the original wave we had. Again this is going to be 1. And then this is 0. Now 1. This is going to be 0. You understand that? So in this order, this is very easy when compared to the earlier one. Another flat long line, since it is continuing 0 here. Another something like this. This is going to be 1. And again going to be 0. Again 1 will be there. So this is very easy to draw regarding our amplitude shift keying. That is representing only 2 values, unlike the earlier analog incident. Analog we had to go for many more waves. Okay, we like ASK. ASK we like is the process of ASK is the process of changing the amplitude of the carrier wave is a process of changing the amplitude of the carrier wave to match with the digital signal without changing the other properties of the carrier wave. Next point, the digital signal maintains only two states, which is better say ones and zeros. So that the modulated signal maintains only two amplitude levels. Within brackets, right? Only two amplitude levels. Within brackets, you write the existing amplitude. Within brackets, the existing amplitude to represent 1. And zero amplitude to represent 0. Again say that no signal. represent 0, that means no signal. Next point you like. The modulated signal is a discontinued signal. Modulated signal is a discontinued. Why is it discontinued? Signal is continued. Here is no need. Discontinued. Again, signal is starting. Discontinued. The modulated signal is a discontinued signal when compared to the other modulation techniques. When compared to the other modulation techniques. Right. Next point. Now, other thing, right? Now, this ASK is used in our fiber optic communication. We learned about fiber optic. Fiber optic is carrying light signal. So, whenever the fiber optic media is here, we send a light here that is reflected from the walls and going to the other side. We are going to get it. Then, since the amplitude modulation represents that discontinuation, somewhere here it's 1, that means wave is there. Then it's 0, that means no wave. Again, wave is there. So, wave is there means whatever the light signal, we have the light source, the torch or the laser torch, laser source. Whenever it's on, the laser light is working now. That means the wave is there. Then we off it. So on the laser light is making the signal, having the wavelength. Then we off it. Off means amplitude is going to be 0. It represents 0. So here we have the detector or the receiver. Laser detector or receiver. The receiver gets the signal, light comes here, then that is 1. At the next millisecond, no light. That means 0. On, off. So this side, we turn on the light, off the light. So signal is going from here to there. Detector gets it means 1. Detects not getting means 0. Getting 1, not getting 0. So then this can be practically and efficiently used in fiber optic. No noise combined. It's a pure, neat, fast, efficient concept of modulation. Clear? Would you like further? ASK is practically used. ASK is practically used. ASK is practically used in fiber optic communication. In fiber optic communication, by turn on the laser source, which is like I say 1, and by turn off the laser source, within like I say 0. Turn off the laser source, even 0. At the sending point. Next point. ASK is more efficient. Less affected by noise, less affected by noise. Right. Then shall we take this signal diagram, the drawing? So I'll just leave this now. You can understand this, right? Can you? Now this is easier when compared to the analog thing. So hopefully I expect the digital signal modulation to be drawn, since they are fixed when compared to the analog. Analog now we can't predict where will the curve, how the curve should be likewise. But in digital it's not like that. It's completely fixed. So you can have the sharp margins. At this point it should be finishing the wave, then continuing zero. So this fixed is better. Pulse checking machine is like this. Yes, pulse checking machine is fine, but that's not communication. When you check the pulse, it have the pulse and no, but that's not use of communication. It has to be in communication. Fine. Then hope that you can draw this. Then we don't have time to go to the other one. It's FSK as well as PSK. So then I'll leave that to the next online session, that is on the next Wednesday. And there were many suggestions to continue, but I don't know how practical they are. Somehow our next month, right? So next week we have the online. Listen carefully. Next week it's online itself. From the next month onwards, May onwards, the physical class will be on Sunday. Then Wednesday class online will not be there. Right. Then I'll stop from this point. He hoping to start FSK on the next week.